I was saying earlier that I caught up with some of the speakers last night, and I was lucky enough to be sitting at the same table last night as Hayley Morris, and we had wide-ranging discussion. What goes on tour stays on tour, and I won't be repeating any of it right now. But really interesting to speak to her about what she does and also the way she manages her life, given that she has a daughter who is obviously very important to her life, but she manages her life sustainably and weaves her daughter, who she's raising with the help of extended family, she weaves the care of her daughter into her life. So for someone who is the managing director of Impact Sustainability and also co-founder of a sustainable table, and coming back to that story of sustainability, it's interesting that she's practicing what she's preaching in her personal life as well as in her professional life. I'll ask Hayley to come and speak to us about the global food crisis, personal responsibility and change.
Thanks very much, Sally, and we did have a lovely meal last night. And I'm glad there's a few things you didn't say. But I will be completely honest, it's great to be standing up here today, but it's been a hugely daunting process in that when I was asked to speak, I didn't really get very many instructions, just that we assume you might talk about food. And we got some commandments, 10 TED commandments. And I'm just going to tell you what the first one was, because this is what kind of threw me. It said something along the lines of, dream big, strive to create the best speech you've ever given, reveal something the audience has never seen, and say something that could change the world. You might understand why I'm starting to feel a little bit daunted. So what I did, I thought I'd do a little bit of research, and I jumped online and I watched some TED Talks. And so I watched some billionaires talk. I watched some people who've dedicated their lives to a particular topic. And that was a bad idea. Totally freaked me out even more. And what I actually realised was I was getting way too obsessed with what I was going to say and how I was going to perform and standing up here and making a really good speech when I'd completely lost sight of why I'd been asked to talk today. And this speech is not about me, it's about you. In fact, everyone else who's up here today, there you go. Everyone else who's up here today is here for you guys. So, I'm here to say something is going to inspire you guys to change the world. No pressure. So what does it mean to change the world? Well, we can't change the world overnight, we know that. But we can change ourselves. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to tell you a little story about how I went from being someone who I would say didn't really know much about the environment and I suppose didn't really care, to getting up every day and dedicating my life to fighting for a more sustainable future. So this story starts in 2006. I'm 23 years old and I've decided to dedicate my life to serving the corporate world, which meant making money, spending money, going out, wine, food, clothes, and planning the next holiday. As it turns out, the next holiday was a family trip to South Africa and we were going on game parks. So my family, I wasn't grown up, obviously resources were always consumed appropriately, but we weren't instilled with, I suppose, environmental values that I have today. So for me, this was probably one of the first times where I'd actually sat in nature for an extended amount of time. And it wasn't just sitting with nature, it was learning about it. It was learning about how the animals and the plants all coexisted. And what seemed to be in a beautiful, chaotic balance. And everything had a place and everything had a purpose. And then it hit me. What's my place and purpose in life? How can I be sitting on a four-wheel drive car and for the first time experience nature and the beauty of nature in this way? And in fact, I'm actually just destroying it. Everything about my life seemed to be of destruction. So I went back to Melbourne, which is where I'm from, and I had become a different person. I had literally had people coming up to me and saying, something happened to you when you were away. And I couldn't quite work out what that was. But I found out that a seed had been planted and it had woken something in me. And I needed to start my journey of 1,000 miles, which, as a very wise man once said, starts with a single step. So, the next thing I needed to do was very important, because planting a seed is one thing, but making it grow and changing your life is another. And that growth is fueled by what I refer to, well, as a lot of people refer to, as knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge can help us grow. Knowledge, for me, developed a sense of responsibility that I couldn't turn away from. So I started a journey of learning, which went on for a few years. Actually, it continues today. But there are some key things that I learnt on this journey which I come back to at any point in time when I start to feel a bit disconnected from what I'm doing. And I'm going to take you through them today. And I don't have a clicker, so next slide. So this is just some high-level bits of information. I don't have a lot of time to take you through 3 years' worth of learning. So I'm going to start with population growth, because for me this was a massive thing to really come to grips with, in that it took us somewhere around 50,000 years to reach 1 billion people. And then we started to get really good at growing our population. And it was another around 123 years to reach 2, and then I think we did it in 30-something to reach 3, and then we dropped it to 14 years and we got down to 7. So we're on track to reach 7 billion people by 2050. That's pretty impressive. It's also a lot of mouths to feed, and it's also a lot of resources that we're consuming, which we've heard about today and we'll keep hearing about. So what causes population growth? Well, lots of things. The Industrial Revolution played a very big part in this, including advances of technology. One of the key things that really stuck with me was our ability to access food. And one of the really important aspects of that is a very important resource called oil. A slide. So oil is fundamentally linked to our food system. Okay, slide again, please. It plays a huge important role in the production of fertilisers and chemicals that we use for farming. It's very involved in the machinery we use on our farm, through the production processes, through the transport, to the packaging, to the way we actually drive to the supermarket, and the plastic bags we use to package up our food. It's so fundamentally linked to the food system that the well-off consumer, sorry, another slide, gobbles up the equivalent of 64 barrels of oil each year. That is a lot of oil. Next slide. In fact, what's not surprising with this story is that the food price index is closely linked to the price of oil. So you'll see in this graph that in 2008, when we saw record oil prices, we probably all remember complaining when we're going to fill up our car. What was happening at the same time was the price of food was also driving up, and we had food riots break out in countries all around the world. So back to population. We're growing our population. We're using more resources. We're increasing demand. The price of oil will go up, as will the price of food. Have a slide. So next up, I'm just going to talk briefly about water. So we're using water inappropriately. We're not farming appropriately with water. We also have climate change, which means we're melting the glaciers. We've got severe droughts. In fact, the International Water Management Institute has estimated that in 25 years' time, we're not going to have enough water to feed ourselves. So I'm guessing many of you in this room are over 25, and probably, hopefully, a lot of you have got 25 years left. So we're going to see this. My daughter, who's 2, won't even be my age, and we'll be struggling to feed ourselves. It's not something to dismiss. Next slide. So loss of land to grow food. We've heard a lot about soil today. We know we're not farming appropriately, we're having to leave land. We're also growing our population, we're taking over what is good farming land. We're mining, we've got recreation. The statistic is that we've lost pretty much about 24% of our fertile soils, and we're on a rate of about 1% loss each year. So by 2050, we're going to have lost over half of our farmland. We're going to not have enough water, and we're going to have a population of 7 billion people. Slide. So intensive farming has pretty much come about of need to feed more people and at a cheaper price. Only there's been a lot of environmental and ethical issues that have come up from this. So in Australia alone, we have 500 million animals in factory farms each year. We have a population of 22.5, roughly. So that's about 22 animals per person. That's a lot of animals. We can be doing this better. There are better ways. Except our intensive farming isn't just limited to land. We're doing a really good job of destroying the oceans. In fact, the International Programme, The State of the Ocean, released a report last year which said that the world's ocean is at an extreme rate of extinction, unprecedented in human history. Another stat, by 2050, if we continue at the current rate, we'll have depleted all of our fishing stocks. So this just isn't a problem for our sushi restaurants. There's millions of people around the world that rely on the ocean for their primary source of income and for their protein. So they're going to then have to move to the land to get protein. And we already know what happens with that in terms of loss of land and factory farming. So next slide. Food distribution and waste. So we're often told that we need to grow more food to feed the hungry. GMOs, genetically modified foods, are often put up as a great solution to this. Only we don't actually need to grow more food, we grow enough as it is. We in fact grow 50% more grain than is needed for every person. Only we're feeding it to animals, so we can have meat products. And we're wasting a lot of food. We waste enough food to feed 3 billion people. At the same time, we have 27,000 children who die each day of starvation. And at the same time, we have an obesity epidemic. 1.2 million are starving and 1 million are obese. Our food system, quite simply, is broken and we need to fix it. So, that's an overview of my journey. I'll just go to the next slide. What happened to me during this process was that little bit by little bit, I was taking my steps. I had changed. I had become the change that I wanted to see in the world. And what was interesting about this change that happened to me was that I didn't just change myself. Ask my family. I changed all of them. And I changed a lot of other people. And I'm hoping that that is my way of changing the world. But, as I said at the start, this speech is actually not about me, it's about you guys. So, how do I get you all to find a seed, to learn and let that seed grow, and all of you to change the world? So I'm going to use another quote on my next slide. And I like using quotes. Sorry, can I get the next slide? Because very smart people say some really, really smart things, and they're often dead, so we can't argue with them. But Albert Einstein said, "My environment is everything that is not me." Now, Albert Einstein had a habit of being correct, so we probably don't want to argue with him. But what this means to me is that if you have love in your life at all, outside of yourself, because it's good to love yourself too, but in this case, it's everything that is not you, then you love your environment. And this doesn't mean you're a hippie or a greenie. It just means that there is something that you need to protect. And so therefore, you need to use this as your seed. So what I want you all to do for me now is to think of something that you love. So this thing could be a pet, it could be your partner, it could be your 2-year-old daughter. It could be an activity that you love. For me, it's running. It could be the mountains. It could be the ocean. It could be your farm. So, is everybody thinking of something? And I want you to smile. I want you to hold on to that. And when you're reflecting on everything that's been said before me today, and everything that will be said after me, I want you to think of this thing and use your knowledge to form a responsibility to protect what you love. Then what I want you to do is when you leave here today and you go home, start learning about how you can support a sustainable food system. Because I'm not going to stand up here and tell you today because I don't have enough time, but that's your journey. That's your journey of knowledge. Because we can change the world 3 times a day, in fact, by the way we purchase or we grow our food. But I don't want you to stop there. You need to keep learning. You need to keep using knowledge to grow and water your seed. This is really important. Because what will happen through this process, as it happened to me, is that you will change yourself without even knowing it. And that's not bad. I know a lot of people are change resistant. you will change yourself in such an exciting way that you will change everyone around you. So, in conclusion, I ask each one of you to try and do this for me. And all I need is one of you to actually go away and do this for me. Because my job was to stand up here and say something that could change the world. So now it's over to you guys. So good luck and thank you.